Hey, greetings all. Okay, just in advance, I just finished recording all of the lowest level of Tsaroth, and it went long. So we are going to split it into two videos. I'm going to upload the first one now. The second one, I'm going to try to, it's already recorded. Try to get that out as soon as possible. For this video, I think we're going to try to do the main corridor and the area of the Gully Dwarves on what we're calling the north side of the map, because it's on the top of the map, even though it's not north. And so appreciate your patience on that, and we'll jump into that. Hey everybody, this is the Techno Funk Boy, and we are talking about DragonLance for 5th edition. We are in Tsaroth, and we are going to be going through this iconic, great dungeon together, and just pointing out a few things and giving us a little bit of an idea of how this dungeon works and some tips on running it, particularly in 5th edition, as I'm doing with my group. Now, if you are joining us for the first time, this is actually part of a series where we're going through the DragonLance modules and kind of updating them for 5th edition. There is a playlist, but if you are here specifically for Tsaroth, this is part 2 of Tsaroth. This is the lowest level of Tsaroth. If you're looking for the 2 levels above it, check out the video right here, and we'll hit on that. We'll hit on those levels more. You can come back here when you're ready to run this part of the dungeon. My last disclaimer: if you are a player who is running this game for the first time, or want to run it in the future, there are definitely spoilers forthcoming. And so please turn back now, but if you would, send your DM my way, and that way we can sit down together and play a little bit with Tsaroth and kind of get a handle on this massive dungeon. This is one of the things with this game. This is our first dungeon right out of the bat, and it's a big one. If you count the swamp on the top level, which is a whole chapter in and of itself in the book, and then go into 3 separate levels of this dungeon, and we're getting to this last level, which is by far the biggest. And it's a lot to hold on to, and so dungeon masters, to run this dungeon, you got to kind of get an idea of how it's working, and once you have an idea of how it's running, then the rest you can kind of work your way through. There's some timing issues that we're going to need to work out. The version of the book is very static. But as we get into it, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, that I don't particularly like that aspect of it. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I think we can do better. And so we're going to head down to the deepest level of Tsaroth. You will remember that this was once a great thriving town, and during the cataclysm, it cracked, and there was the new sea was forming underneath it, and it cracked, and it slid literally down the side of a cliff, part of it coming off and twisting over, but then this big section of it landed at the bottom and kind of gets covered up into its own cavern. So this is the way I'm imagining this. Part of this cavern, we already know, stretches up all the way to the top, to the well, because that is where the Black Dragon Onyx, or Tsaroth, has already come up, has already attacked our heroes. Now this was a really, really cool scene, but this is also where we run into problems, because Tsaroth knows that the blue crystal staff is here. Tsaroth knows, furthermore, that she did not kill those intruders. And so it seems very unlikely that she would then just kind of stop and just kind of statically just put herself with her hoard of gold, and that was it. We started playing with some ideas on how we could make her presence more felt in the dungeon last time, but we're going to do so even more today. So let's kind of jump over to the map itself. Now this is, if you'll remember last time, I really wasn't satisfied with a lot of the maps that I found online, and so I just made one, and it was perfectly serviceable in Roll20, but obviously these games were not originally made for Roll20. So we're gonna see that we're actually gonna start off in one of two places. Either we're starting off like right above my head over on this side of the map, or we're going to start off right about there. Now that is actually where the buckets that come down to pick up Draconians to bring them up to the higher levels. You'll remember that Draconians can glide, but they cannot fly. And so they are perfectly able to, jump into the well from the top layer, or in the middle layer. They don't really go to the middle layer. There's no reason for them to go to the middle layer, and so that you don't find them there. But they live down here and they need a way up. So they've got this pulley system where they throw about 15 gully dwarves into one to one pot, so that it provides the counterweight to bring another one up and lift the Draconians up into the higher levels. This is where that lets off. And so if you end up there, you're immediately going to find some Draconian guards the gully dwarfs don't hang out there. They get into the pots up at top, but once they reach down here, they usually go to on what is on this map. The north side of the map is actually where they live. They shimmy up this kind of drain type thing, which is one of the ways that they could get down to get back up, and that empties out like right above my head. Or if your players use the transport spell that is set up in the tax office, that also dumps out into that kind of middle section right above my head. In either one of those cases, they're starting out on this side of the map. The first thing to do, that's tempting, of course, is to go down that main corridor. I did way too many circles there. Sorry. Down that main corridor. This is the first and obvious thing to do. There's a lot of reasons they might try to sneak around that, especially if they talked to the ghost of in the Philosopher's Realm upstairs, looking for a safer way in. So they might kind of filter out onto one of the two sides of the city here. But this is a good chance that they're going to head down here, which is not necessarily what we want them to do, although obviously it's the player's options. There's a couple of things here that can really trip up your party. The first of all is like all these little buildings, these on the either side of the street, are empty. There's like not even an entry in the book, and so that can get really, really dull really, really quickly. You're just opening empty doors and you're not really finding anything. The exception is that the old soldiers' barracks is immediately on the south side. Let me see. I might be able to just actually move my circle right there. That's the really old-fashioned low budget way of doing that. But hey, you know what? It works. And So there's some interesting stuff in there, and the Draconians are using this area as their own barracks, particularly in this room. Which, if your players do find that room, it is hilarious. Because I don't care what time of day it is. My firm belief is Draconians sleep in shift, so that room is going to be filled with sleeping Draconians, and your players are going to open that door, look inside, and immediately close that door again, unless they just don't value their lives at all. And so this is the first part where I want us to start thinking about this city as more than just walls and pathways. Okay, what did it look like? This used to be one of the main passageways on this side of the city. And now there's this water that's kind of flowing down it, because all the water from the sides of the hills are coming down in different areas and waterfalls, and they're all kind of flowing back toward where we're going to find Tsaroth, and creating all these pools here. But this was like the main passageway on this side of the town. This is where all these buildings around here are businesses. And so what does this look like now? Now we're in a cavern. We're not exposed to the outside, but this cavern we already know is very, very big. This is not a cavern that is like sitting right on top of our heads. This is actually open. And so this is actually the places like this is going to be where Tsaroth is looking. And it is also one of the primary corridors that the Draconians are going to use. It's not going to be the primary corridor because, like I said before, they go up on this bottom part of the map right here, and so it's not all that common that they're in that middle section, but I guarantee if their dragon leader is telling them, hey, we need to start searching the place, that they're heading down that corridor, that they're going to be heading north into the main corridors of that north side of town. And by the way, when I do use north, south, east, west here, that's fuzzy because I'm trying to look. Okay, so this side of the map technically is north, but every map has it set up like this, and I'm sorry that just confuses players. I'm sorry, it does. It confuses me too. To have north on the right side of the map instead of the top. So when I say north, I am talking about this map. I'm not talking about the proper directions of the thing, because if I start saying north, and your eyes are going to go up and instead of over here, and I want your eyes to do what they normally do because it's going to be easier for us to explain. So when I say north, I'm talking about the top part of the map here. So that is where the Gully Dwarves live. So there's going to be a few Draconians in there. That's going to rile up the Gully Dwarves as well. And so there's a lot going on here. Tsaroth is probably searching around the places that she can actually see. This corridor is one of them. She can do flyovers of this. And furthermore, with all the water rushing, it is harder for your players to hear things. And it's dark, so it's harder for them to see things. And so it's going to be very quickly obvious to them that they're not. It's going to be. It's a lot harder for them to hear dangers that are coming, and there are a lot of dangers coming in this area. And so let's keep that in mind. Now, if your players did a long rest before reaching this point, that changes things a little bit. 8 hours later, the urgency of the situation has died down a little bit. But if they haven't, this is where as a DM you've got to think through this. It's like, okay, how long did it take them to get down here? Because if it's in the first couple of hours, Tsaroth is circling. The Draconians are all over the place. Cassanthus yelling at them. We're going to find out later that in the midst of all of this, there's been a prisoner escape. Cassanthus wondering, it's like, oh, are these two connected? Did they already get to the prisons? All right, go check out the prisons. We got to find that prisoner. I bet those intruders are with them. All of this stuff is happening at the same time, and so there's panic. All right, that panic cannot remain at that intensity. As hours and hours and hours go by, people, the Draconians are going to start getting tired. Onyx herself is going to start getting tired, and so things might change. But as a DM, this is what you're working out in your head. And so there's a pretty good chance that this corridor is very, very busy and with flyovers from the dragon. And so that is where we can finally put these empty rooms to use as cover. Because these buildings are not open. Or they might have shells of, roofs, ruins, cracks and everything, but there's places to hide in there. And so they might, your players might be using these as places to hide and to be safe. And so that's one way that you can make use of the town itself. North side of town. This whole section of town is where the Gully Dwarves live. There's different rooms have different purposes, and the book has little labels for all of them. I honestly wanted to take the stuff from the book that was really good, but anything that was just generic, I wanted to change it here. I wanted to kind of think about how the Gully Dwarves have set up their society. So the Gully Dwarves are pretty much left alone here. They're being used by the Draconians and Cassanth to, for a lot of reasons. And so Cassanth knows that giving them some space, letting them feel like they're in control over there is probably a good thing. It keeps them satisfied. They don't, they're not overly ambitious. They think that since they own this section of town that they're in charge. They don't bother us over here. And that's why I say having the Draconians run around in here is going to cause some commotion. And a lot of the Gully Dwarfs might not like it at all. They feel like they, that, hey, wait, no, we're in charge over here. Why are you bothering us? But they don't have the power to fight back. And so that might be, it might be one of two things. When your players get to Fudge Highbulp, the leader, his amazing name, they might play this out in one of two ways. And as a DM, you have to decide this. Does Fudge want to get back at the Draconians by showing your players the secret passage? Or does Highbulp want to kind of settle things down by letting the Draconians know where you are? He still might show you the secret passage, but, might let the Draconians know about it. That's it. The latter is actually the way I played it, but keeping in mind that he's not very bright. He started talking about it before the door was closed, and my players caught him, and they threatened him. And he took that threat seriously, and so he did not tell the Draconians about them. And so there's a lot of different ways you can play this character. So I also had, my players asked them for, any supplies or anything, and I'm sitting here. It's like, okay, Gully Dwarfs, they've got to have a big pile of junk, right? And in the junk, you could pick around in it. And there's the 5th edition Player's Handbook's got a nice little kind of loot of worthless loot table that's amazing for situations like this. And they find all sorts of of crap in there that is not of any interest. But remember that the Gully Dwarfs do not trust magical items. They view magical items as worthless. They think that if the item had any value, then you wouldn't need to infuse it with magic. The only reason you to infuse something with magic is if it was crap in the first place. And so might be something that you throw into this area, that maybe they got some few magic items around. This, I mentioned this in the last video. I'm reading further. So, you know, there's the first edition of this module. They redid it for second edition, which is pretty much the same thing. In kind of these classics collections, and then for 3.5, it was done again by Margaret Weiss's company. And I've been looking more and more into the 3.5 thing, and I really do like it. And one thing I like about this, and this was one of those things of great minds thinking alike. The 3.5 version puts the spellbook of Fistandantilus in here, and I did too. But it's interesting where our purposes with it divulge. For them, it was just, you know, all it is this spell book that you can copy spells out of. So for the wizards, like, hey, here, you copy some spells. Great. Everybody's happy. I have put it in as a cursed item that has a very, very specific use. And I'm going to do a whole video on it because I love the way it's going, and I think my players are loving it too. And so I'm going to do a whole video on what I did with the spellbook of Fistandantilus. But I put it here, and the Gully Dwarfs think it's crap, and so they give it away for a copper, essentially, you know, for nothing. Okay, that is where we're going to cut. We're going to head over to part 2, and so stay tuned, please. Subscribe to the channel here. Hit that bell notification that's going to tell you when part 2 gets uploaded. The book we're playing out of is actually the first edition copy of Dragons of Despair. This is available on DriveThruRPG. If you do want to run this game with 5th edition rules or for the original, there is also a second edition version which combines the first 4 modules into a single book. It's a little bit cheaper. It's got all the information. That's cool. I also mentioned the 3.5 edition. That is also on DriveThruRPG, and I've been looking at it and a lot, and I'm very impressed with it. And I think that you know, I'm gonna use it more and more heavily in these videos because it has some great stuff in there. So subscribe, bell, be back soon for part 2. We appreciate it.